When she realizes the silence is forever, psychology tricks. Sometimes silence is the loudest cry of all. Anonymous. Silence wears many masks. There's the silence of anger, when two people wait for the other to break first. The silence of pride, when neither will yield or admit they care more than they should. And the silence of games, when she pulls away, not out of hate, but to see if you'll notice, if you'll chase, if you still care. But then comes a different kind of silence. A silence colder than any argument, heavier than any goodbye. It's the silence that doesn't test you, doesn't punish you, and doesn't wait. It's the silence that means it's over. No more words. No more waiting. It's the sound of her heart closing its door, quietly, finally, completely. When she realizes the silence is forever, it's not revenge. It's peace. And that silence will echo longer than any spoken goodbye ever could. 1. When silence feels temporary. When silence first hits, she doesn't see it for what it is. She tells herself it's another one of your games, a strategy, a move in the same endless emotional tug-of-war you've both played for too long. She assumes you'll break the pattern, that you'll call, text, or show up, because you always did before. She believes the silence is just another round in the familiar fight, not realizing this time it's different. This time, it's not a pause. It's the end. That's the fascinating thing about female psychology. It often misreads distance as a tactic, not a decision. But the truth, revealed only by time, is brutal. A day of silence? That's nothing. A week? She can rationalize that away. But when the days melt into weeks and the weeks into months, when her phone glows at night and your name isn't there, that's when the truth slices through her illusions. That's when she realizes this silence isn't temporary. It's forever. And here's where psychology tricks work in your favor. You didn't beg. You didn't explain. You didn't chase. You simply stopped. Because real power isn't in the words you say, it's in the silence you keep. That's how to fall in love again, not with her, but with your own peace. You've finally learned the oldest trick in male psychology. You don't win by reacting, you win by detaching. Don't be the man who pleads for attention. Be the man who walks away with dignity. That's the psychology trick she never saw coming. You're no longer trying to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it. You're not craving validation from someone who thrived on control. You've mastered female psychology without saying a word. When she realizes the silence is forever, her world shifts. She replays every conversation, every fight, every tear-stained night, trying to pinpoint when the balance of power changed. She thought you'd crumble like before, but you didn't. That's when the psychology tricks flip the script. You're no longer the one waiting. She is. You're no longer the one chasing. She's the one haunted by memories of what she dismissed. Silence, my friend, is louder than any confession, stronger than any apology, sharper than any revenge. Don't break it. Don't ruin it with words. Be the man who lets absence do the talking. Be the one who understands that sometimes the best, how to fall in love lesson starts with loving yourself enough to stop explaining. That is the moment she finally understands. The silence isn't punishment. It's peace. And it's yours. She will realize too late that your silence wasn't a threat, it was closure. She'll scroll through old messages, hoping for a sign, but nothing comes. And that's when she'll feel the full weight of it. That's when your silence becomes the loudest sound she's ever heard. You must remember this. Don't break what's already been fixed by distance. Don't go back to the chaos you outgrew. The real psychology trick is restraint, the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who finally knows his worth. Be that man. Be still. Because when she realizes the silence is forever, that's when she finally understands what losing you truly means. 2. The truth behind the silence. You didn't just go silent, you went silent forever. You didn't withdraw to punish her, you withdrew to heal yourself. You didn't just stop talking, you stopped participating in the cycle that broke you. That's what makes this silence powerful. It isn't a strategy. It isn't revenge. It isn't a trick. It's recovery. When a man finally stops explaining, arguing, or begging to be understood, something changes deep within him. That's the moment a man becomes dangerously peaceful. Temporary silence can be explained away. She can wait it out, assume you'll return, or convince herself that you just need space. But forever silence? That's different. That's a door slammed shut, a bridge burned, a declaration carved into the bones of finality. You are not coming back. This silence is not an act of pride. It's not about proving a point. It's about protecting your peace. When you stop chasing, you stop bleeding energy. That's when your masculine energy begins to rebuild itself, the kind that doesn't seek validation but commands respect. It's the quiet power of a high value man who no longer wastes his strength trying to convince someone to see his worth. And here's the irony: when you were talking, she barely listened. But when you stopped, really stopped, she finally heard you. Because silence speaks louder than any words ever could. It echoes through her mind long after you've gone. She feels it in the empty spaces of her day, in the weight of your absence. That's when she realizes that the silence is forever and that it's not about her anymore. Don't break the silence. Don't explain it. Don't justify it. Be the man who walks away with dignity, who chooses peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. Be the high value man whose masculine energy draws respect, self control, and the kind of peace that naturally attracts women who value his presence. That's not arrogance. That's evolution. Your silence isn't the end of love, it's the beginning of self respect. Because the moment you decide your peace is non negotiable, that's when you truly become untouchable. That's when you stop chasing and start attracting. That's when a man becomes more than just silent, he becomes sovereign. 3. The silence of Stoic recovery. This is the silence of the man who has remembered his worth. The silence that speaks louder than every word she will ever say. It is the silence of Stoic recovery, an armor forged from old Stoic wisdom, from an iron mind trained not to react, not to beg, not to explain. This silence doesn't ache for closure because it is the closure. It doesn't chase, doesn't plead, doesn't perform. It stands firm, calm, unshaken, complete. It's the silence that says, I have already let go. And when she finally realizes that the silence is forever, that your absence is not a tactic but a truth, that's when the power shifts. That's when she learns the cost of losing a man who mastered himself. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the core of Stoicism win, the victory not over her, but over your own weakness, your own need for validation. Don't break your silence. Don't explain your peace. Let it roar in its quietness. The world respects a man who can walk away and mean it. In modern life, where noise is constant and attention is the new currency, the man who can stay silent, truly silent, is the rare one. He's not scrolling for distraction, not checking if she watched his story, not drowning in what-ifs. He's focused, working, building, becoming. That's Stoic recovery. That's an iron mind in motion. Remember what Seneca said, he who is brave is free. You must be brave enough to let silence do the talking. Don't seek her reaction, seek your redemption. Don't look back, look within. Don't wait for her to understand, understand yourself. This is the way of old Stoic wisdom. It doesn't react to emotion, it commands it. It doesn't chase love, it radiates it. Your silence is not weakness, it's the ultimate strength, the final declaration that you've evolved beyond the noise. Let that silence teach her what your words never could. Let it remind her that some losses echo louder than any argument. That is Stoicism win, choosing control over chaos, peace over pity, pride over pain. So, men, listen well. Stand firm in that silence. Don't text. Don't post. Don't perform. Just live. Win quietly. Heal privately. Rise daily. Because when she realizes the silence is forever, you won't even notice. You'll already be too far ahead, walking the path of the Stoic, armed with discipline, purpose, and an iron mind that bows to no storm. That is your victory. That is your freedom. That is Stoic recovery. 4. Breaking the cycle. Every story has a cycle: the rise, the fall, and the painful repeat. You know it too well. The arguments that start small but end loud, the apologies whispered like broken promises, the grand vows to do better, and the disappointment that always follows right behind. It's the same exhausting pattern of giving more than you ever receive, of chasing someone who only runs faster, of explaining yourself to ears that were never really listening. That, my friend, is not love. That's emotional cardio with no finish line. At first, you tell yourself that maybe this time will be different. Maybe if you say the right thing, she'll finally hear you. Maybe if you love her harder, she'll finally notice. Maybe if you just hold on a little longer, she'll finally stay. You keep believing because that's what hope does. It tricks your brain into mistaking pain for progress. But here's one of the simplest psychology tricks in the book. Cycles don't end when she changes. They end when you do. When you finally understand that your dignity matters more than being right. When your peace becomes more precious than her attention. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Female psychology isn't a mystery. When she realizes the silence is forever, when she feels the loss of your energy, that's when the real shift begins. Don't try to convince her anymore. Don't try to prove your worth to someone who can't see it. Be the silence that teaches the loudest lesson. Be the man who doesn't chase what disrespects his peace. That is power. That is control. And ironically, that's one of the most effective psychology tricks you can ever use, to stop trying to make her fall in love with your words and let her feel the absence of your presence instead. Understanding female psychology isn't about manipulation. It's about clarity, knowing that love isn't supposed to hurt and that walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means finally waking up. So break the cycle. Don't repeat the same mistake expecting a new ending. Don't stay trapped in a loop that only feeds your loneliness. Choose freedom. Choose yourself. Because the moment you stop fighting for someone who stopped caring is the moment you start learning how to fall in love again, this time, with peace, purpose, and a life that no longer revolves around being understood by someone who never listened in the first place. If this message speaks to you, give this video a like, comment below, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more self-growth and psychology insights. Comment to remember, I choose peace over pain. 5. Choosing yourself. That's what forever silence truly means, the breaking of the cycle. Not for her sake, but for yours. It's not about pride, revenge, or waiting for her to realize what she lost. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about choosing yourself. You are no longer the man who explains himself into exhaustion. You've talked, reasoned, pleaded, and tried to be understood, but understanding was never the problem. The problem was giving your energy to someone who stopped valuing it. A high-value man doesn't beg to be understood. He simply walks away with quiet confidence. You are no longer the man who writes paragraphs only to receive one-word replies. You stop trying to decode her cold tone or chase after half-hearted attention. You no longer invest time in someone who treats you like an option. That's what men with masculine energy understand. Attention that must be begged for is never worth keeping. And you are no longer the man who believes that love means suffering endlessly just to prove your worth. Love is not supposed to hurt. Love is supposed to grow you. But when love turns into self-sacrifice, it becomes self-destruction. Don't glorify pain as loyalty. Don't wear your wounds as proof that you care more. Be the man who knows when to stop. Be the man who chooses peace over chaos. The cycle ends the moment you stop participating, the moment you withdraw from the argument, the moment you refuse to return to a game that only ever drained you. That's the exact moment your power returns. You stop playing the role of the chaser and start becoming the chooser. That's when you begin to attract women who recognize your strength, not your desperation. Silence doesn't mean waiting. It doesn't mean you're bitter or broken. It means you're done explaining, done proving, done fighting battles that only exhaust your soul. Silence, when it comes from clarity, is strength. It says, I'm no longer available for what doesn't serve me. That is not weakness, that is growth. This is the silence of recovery. Not silence because you're angry. Not silence because you're hoping she'll call. Silence because you've found peace in letting go. Because your value no longer depends on how she feels about you. You've stopped trying to earn love through suffering. You've chosen to build it within yourself. A high-value man doesn't chase validation. He commands respect through presence. His silence speaks louder than any words he could say. It's not manipulation, it's liberation. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have nothing to prove. When she realizes the silence is forever, she will finally understand what she lost. Not just your voice, but your energy, your attention, your devotion. But by then, you'll have already moved forward. That is the beauty of masculine detachment. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it simply moves on with power and grace. Because the man who chooses himself never truly loses anything. He only sheds what was holding him back. That is the real silence, the silence of freedom. 6. The power of final silence. When she realizes the silence is forever, that's when the story truly ends. She expected pauses, not endings. She expected you to waver, to return, to bend again under the same old spell. But this time, you didn't flinch. You chose yourself. You walked away not with rage, not with words, but with the most powerful statement a man can make: silence. That is your victory. That is your Stoicism win. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You didn't fight. You didn't plead. You simply stopped playing. That is Old Stoic wisdom in action. That is the iron mind of a man who has mastered his emotions instead of being ruled by them. Don't chase what disrespects your peace. Don't beg for recognition where it's never been freely given. Don't return to cycles that drained your soul and called it love. A man must learn when silence is his greatest weapon. Let others scream, explain, and justify. You stay still. You remain silent. Because silence is strength. Silence is clarity. Silence is power. In a world of noise, the man who can remain silent commands the room without uttering a word. As Seneca said, he who is brave is free. You have chosen freedom, freedom from the emotional chaos, from the endless games, from the illusion that love means suffering. She will realize the silence is forever. She will remember the sound of your laughter, the warmth of your presence, and she will face the cold echo of her own actions. That's not cruelty, that's consequence. You gave your energy. You gave your loyalty. And when it was no longer valued, you withdrew. That is not weakness. That is mastery. That is Stoicism win. You stood tall, unmoved, unshaken, an iron mind forged in heartbreak, refined by wisdom. You learned that walking away quietly is louder than shouting your pain. Modern life tempts men to seek validation through arguments, through attention, through being the bigger person. But understand this, you don't owe anyone closure who shattered yours. You don't owe anyone an explanation who ignored your truth. You must reclaim your silence, because in that silence, you reclaim your power. You must become like the mountain, still, solid, and unbothered by the storms that rage around it. Old Stoic wisdom teaches this: control what you can, endure what you must, let go of the rest. You are not a boy begging to be seen, you are a man deciding to be free. Don't break the silence. Don't send the message. Don't reopen the door you closed with your own strength. Let her feel the finality. Let her realize that silence is not a pause, it's an ending. This is your declaration of independence. This is your victory march in the quiet. You didn't lose her, you found yourself. You didn't destroy the relationship, you destroyed the illusion. You didn't give up, you grew up. That is Stoicism win. That is the essence of the iron mind. So, hold that silence like a crown. Wear it with pride. Let time and regret do what you no longer need to. Stand in the stillness like a man who finally understands that not every battle is fought with words. Some are won with peace. That peace, your silence, is the sound of a man who has mastered himself. And when she realizes the silence is forever, you will realize the truth. You were never losing her. She was losing you. 7. The moment of awakening. Every man reaches that point, the quiet explosion inside when everything finally makes sense. That's the moment of awakening. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop trying to fix what was never broken in you, but was broken in how she saw you. You realize the cycle you were trapped in wasn't love. It was a performance, a manipulation disguised as affection, a loop of hope and disappointment. When you choose silence forever, that isn't surrender. That is strength. That is clarity. That is the deepest form of peace a man can earn after giving too much for too long. And that silence, it hits her harder than any words ever could. Because your silence isn't a tactic. It isn't another one of those psychology tricks to make her miss you. It's the truth solidified in action. You've detached. You've walked away. You've learned the ultimate rule of female psychology. The power always shifts the moment you stop seeking approval and start choosing yourself. She never saw that coming. In her mind, it was always a game of emotional chess. Push, pull, disappear, reappear. She assumed your absence was another move, another pause before you returned like you always did. She believed she could test you, guilt you, lure you back. That's how many women operate when they think they have control. It's one of those psychology tricks they use without even realizing it. But this time, there's no return. No, I miss you text. No knock on the door. No final goodbye. Just silence. And that silence? It speaks louder than anything you ever said. It tells her that the chapter is closed, the movie's over, the credits have rolled, and she's no longer the main character in your story. Now she's left with the echo of what she destroyed. For the first time, she feels the sting, not from your anger, not from your words, but from your absence. It's the kind of silence that rewires her perception of you. It forces her to confront her own reflection, to realize that the safety net she thought would always catch her has vanished. That's the psychology trick she never understood. When a man truly moves on, he doesn't announce it. He doesn't threaten it. He simply disappears. That's how to fall in love with your own peace, by protecting it from chaos disguised as connection. Don't underestimate the power of your stillness. Be firm in your decision. Be calm in your exit. Don't explain, don't defend, don't justify. That's your awakening, the recognition that love without respect isn't love at all. She may analyze, she may cry, she may try to rewrite the past, but deep down, she knows the truth. Your silence is forever. And that realization, it will haunt her longer than any goodbye ever could. Because nothing unsettles a woman more than realizing the man she thought she could control learned the secret behind female psychology and mastered it without revenge, without hate, without noise. Just silence. 8. The discipline of letting go. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just philosophy, it's the cornerstone of being a high-value man. She thought she could shake you. She believed you'd crumble. She assumed your world revolved around her approval, her attention, her validation. But you didn't break. You didn't chase. You didn't explain. You simply let go, and that, my friend, is what separates a man from a boy. When you stopped replying, when your phone stopped lighting up with desperate texts, when you didn't post to show her you were doing fine, that's when she realized something terrifying. The silence wasn't manipulation. It wasn't a tactic. It was peace. And that peace came from your masculine energy finally finding its ground. Because a man who controls his emotions controls his destiny. A man who doesn't react, who walks away with dignity, is a man no woman forgets. Every night she scrolls through old messages. Every picture that flashes across her feed is a reminder of what she lost. And the truth hits her like a punch. This silence isn't temporary. It's forever. That's when regret sets in. That's when she realizes she didn't just lose a man. She lost a high-value man who knew his worth. You didn't win by replacing her. You won by replacing the need for her. Letting go isn't weakness. It's discipline. It's the art of mastering your emotions while the world begs for your reaction. Don't cling to what's already gone. Don't chase what's running away. Be the man who stays calm while others panic. Be the man whose silence speaks louder than her drama. Because real strength doesn't shout, it radiates. That's what masculine energy truly is, not aggression, not coldness, but grounded power. The energy that says, I choose myself. You must understand, letting go is not loss. It's leadership over your own life. You're not avoiding pain, you're mastering it. And when she finally realizes your silence is forever, She also realizes she'll never again meet a man like you. That's the quiet victory of a high value man, to attract women not by words, but by the calm certainty that you need no one's validation. Be that man. Be the silence she can't forget. If you've mastered the art of walking away in silence, you've already won. True strength is not in what you say, but in what you no longer need to explain. Comment below. My silence speaks louder than my pain. 9. The Stoic principle of finality. When she realizes the silence is forever, that's when the man who lives by old Stoic wisdom stands unshaken. You see, the Stoics understood something most modern men avoid: the law of finality. Endings are not tragedies, they are transformations. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs? Don't beg for closure. Don't plead for understanding. Accept that silence is the final word and let it echo as your victory, not your defeat." In a world addicted to noise and endless validation, your strength lies in restraint. That's Stoicism win. That's the power of an iron mind. When a man walks away and stays silent, he stops fighting battles that no longer serve him. He honors his dignity. He refuses to reopen wounds disguised as memories. Don't chase what's gone. Don't seek to fix what time has already buried. Say to yourself, this chapter is closed. This door will not be reopened. That is your command. That is your liberation. You must understand, clinging is weakness. Letting go is mastery. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Let her silence be your signal, not your suffering. Let it sharpen your discipline, not soften your resolve. Modern men drown in emotional noise, scrolling, calling, explaining, justifying. Don't. Stop feeding what's already ended. Rise above the chaos. Reclaim your calm. Build your fortress within. That's where peace lives. That's where the iron mind rules. Walk away with your head high, your heart steady, your purpose clear. Don't beg for peace, embody it. Don't ask for closure, be the closure. The Stoic man wins not by argument, but by silence. He doesn't announce his exit. He simply disappears and becomes untouchable. Let that be you. The man who accepts endings becomes the man who commands beginnings. That is old Stoic wisdom. That is Stoicism win. That is the unbreakable spirit of a man who chooses strength over sorrow, power over pleading, finality over fantasy. Remember, silence isn't weakness, it's dominion. Control your reactions. Guard your energy. Master your emotions. The world respects the man who doesn't chase. It follows the man who walks away. That's how you win. That's how you rise. That's how you master life with an iron mind. 10. The freedom of silence. Most men fail at mastering the art of silence. They chase after what's already gone, gripping tighter to something that's slipping through their fingers. They beg for answers, reopen closed doors, and burn in the same fire that already scorched them once. They call it love, but it's often just fear of being alone. They confuse loyalty with self-destruction and hope with the chains that keep them bound to pain. And that's the trap, thinking that if they just say the right thing, if they just hold on a little longer, she'll come back. But that's not how female psychology works. If you really want to understand how to fall in love and make her truly respect you, you must learn the psychology tricks that lie in silence, not in words. Because the Stoic man knows something most don't. There is freedom in letting go. There is strength in stillness. There is power in walking away without leaving a trace. Don't try to convince her with words. Be the man who doesn't need to. Be the man whose silence says everything. When you close a door with words, she may test it again. She may push, hoping to hear that familiar sound of weakness, that whisper of unfinished emotion. But when you close that door with silence, true, unwavering, forever silence, it becomes unmovable. That silence echoes louder than any goodbye ever could. It speaks of self-respect, confidence, and peace. It's a psychology trick few men can pull off, but the ones who do, they become unforgettable. In female psychology, nothing triggers curiosity and reflection like a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't explain, who simply disappears into his own calm. Don't misunderstand. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding how to fall in love the right way, with yourself first. It's about knowing that silence is not emptiness, it's power. That's what real control looks like. It's what separates the men who beg from the men who are remembered. So stop talking. Stop explaining. Stop trying to make her understand. Be still. Be silent. Be gone. Let her realize that the silence isn't just quiet, it's forever. And when she does, she'll remember you not as the man who couldn't let go, but as the one who mastered the oldest psychology trick in the book, the strength to say nothing at all. 11. The liberation of letting go. Silence. It's one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Most people think silence is punishment, a weapon used to hurt her. But the truth is, the silence of forever has nothing to do with her. It's about you. It's not revenge. It's release. It's not about making her feel small. It's about making yourself whole again. When you finally choose to let go, when you decide that silence is permanent, you experience a liberation that no words can fully describe. Letting go isn't weakness. Don't let your ego fool you. Letting go is the ultimate display of strength. It's standing tall and saying, I no longer tie my worth to someone else's recognition. I no longer measure my value by whether she chooses me. I am free from the chains of needing her approval. That is the declaration of a high-value man, a man who understands his power doesn't come from being chosen, but from choosing himself. This kind of liberation doesn't scream. It whispers. You start to feel it in your chest. It's lighter. You feel it in your mind. It's quieter. You sleep better because you've stopped replaying the same tired stories in your head. The mornings are different too. Your first thought is no longer about her. It's about you, your goals, your mission, your direction. That is the energy of a man who's found peace within his purpose. That is masculine energy in its purest form. The Stoics had it right. Freedom isn't found in controlling others. It's found in mastering yourself. Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. And that mastery starts when you stop clinging to what's already gone. When you let go, you prove to yourself that you can control the one thing most men can't, their attachment. Most men lose themselves trying to hold on. The high-value man regains himself by letting go. When she realizes the silence is forever, something shifts. Not because you punished her, but because she finally feels the absence of your presence, the strength she took for granted. That's the paradox of silence. The quieter you become, the louder your power echoes. You're no longer chasing validation, and that is exactly what makes you magnetic. You begin to attract women not because you need them, but because you've become the kind of man who doesn't. Women are drawn to that calm certainty, to the man who walks with purpose, not desperation. So don't break the silence. Don't text. Don't explain. Don't look back. Be the man who walks away with dignity. Be the man who chooses peace over chaos, strength over weakness, power over pleading. That is what true liberation feels like. It's not the absence of love, it's the rebirth of self-respect. Because the silence of forever isn't empty, it's full of strength. It's the moment you stop being defined by her and start being defined by who you've become. That is the sound of a man in his power. That is the sound of masculine energy fully awakened. That is the moment you become untouchable. 12. The fire that forges strength. When she realizes the silence is forever, that's when the fire inside you starts to forge something indestructible. At first, the silence cuts deep. The urge to text her, to fix things, to make her understand, it burns like a wildfire in your chest. The mind plays its cruel tricks, whispering reasons to break your own peace. But you must not. That pain is not your enemy, it is your weapon. Old Stoic wisdom teaches us that the man who masters himself masters the world. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is the essence of silence. It is not weakness, it is power restrained. Every second you hold the line, every time you resist the easy way out, you are building an iron mind. You are proving to yourself that emotion no longer commands you. You command emotion. Don't reach out. Don't beg. Don't chase what walked away. Instead, stand still. Breathe. Let her absence echo and let that echo carve discipline into your soul. You must understand, this silence is your training ground. It's the gym for your spirit. Every pang of loneliness is a push-up for your self-control. Every unanswered message strengthens your armor. That is Stoicism win, turning pain into progress, loss into learning, and heartbreak into fuel. As Seneca wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Let that line burn into you. Because this silence is your difficulty, your forge, your fire. Let modern life's chaos test you. Everyone wants quick answers, instant relief, easy dopamine. Don't be like them. Be the exception. Be the calm in the noise. Be the rock in the storm. In a world where men chase validation, let your silence speak of power. Let your restraint scream louder than any words ever could. When you stop seeking her response, you start hearing your own voice again. When you stop reacting, you start creating. That's when you rise from desperation into domination over your thoughts, your impulses, your destiny. Let's be clear, this is not about her anymore. It's about you, your focus, your mission, your legacy. Use the silence to sharpen yourself. Hit the gym harder. Read more. Work more. Level up. Create. Build. Evolve. Transform. Every time you hold back that text, you win. Every time you choose progress over pity, you win. Every time you choose discipline over desire, you win. This is Stoicism win, the victory of the man who refuses to be ruled by emotion. Don't fear the silence. Welcome it. That silence is not empty. It's full of lessons, power, and growth. It's where the weak break and the strong are born. It's where the boy fades and the man emerges. Remember Epictetus. We suffer not from events, but from our judgment about them. So judge this silence not as punishment, but as preparation. You're not losing her. You're finding yourself. You're reforging your purpose. You're rebuilding your empire from within. So let the silence stay. Let it harden you. Let it remind you that no one can take from you what you no longer give. The fire that once burned for her must now burn for your mission. Let it blaze with purpose. Be unmoved, unshaken, unbroken. That is Old Stoic wisdom. That is iron mind. That is how a man wins, not by chasing, but by conquering himself. 13. The Stoic recovery. Stoic recovery isn't about pretending you don't feel pain. It's about learning to master it. Don't run from the silence. Be the man who understands that silence is not weakness. It's power in disguise. This is one of those deep psychology tricks most never learn. The ability to turn heartbreak into fuel, to let pain carve strength instead of scars. Because the truth is simple, only through pain do you find strength, only through absence do you learn presence, and only through self-discipline do you discover real freedom. That is the paradox of control. To let go is to command yourself. When she finally realizes your silence is forever, when the noise of her world fades, and she feels the echo of your absence, it hits her. That sharp sting of knowing she lost the man who once cared deeply, but now stands untouchable. And that's when female psychology comes alive in its truest form, when she starts to chase the calm she once took for granted. You, on the other hand, must stand tall. Don't break, don't explain, don't chase. Be the man who transformed heartbreak into wisdom, silence into strategy, pain into peace. That's how to fall in love with your own strength again. By mastering the psychology tricks that teach you control is not about dominance, but about emotional composure. Remember, she studies you even in your silence, because female psychology is wired to notice what's missing. Be the absence that commands attention, not the noise that begs for it. Don't allow her confusion to pull you back. Be the lesson she never forgets. This is how you win, not by revenge, not by words, but by stillness. That's real power. That's Stoic recovery, the quiet triumph of a man who no longer needs validation, a man who's learned the ultimate psychology trick, to let go so completely that peace becomes his only response. Be that man, the one who doesn't just survive pain but evolves through it. The one who proves that silence speaks louder than any apology, and that strength, true, unshakable strength, isn't about being heard. It's about knowing when to stay silent and let her finally understand. The silence was never weakness. It was your victory. Brothers, remember this. Silence isn't weakness. It's mastery. It's the moment you stop chasing what was never meant for you and start building what is. If this message spoke to you, take it as your reminder. Don't break your silence to explain your worth. Live it. Let your growth do the talking. Let your peace be your proof. So keep walking your path. Keep choosing dignity, discipline, and self-respect. Because that's what true recovery looks like, not in revenge, but in rebirth. I appreciate you for watching, brothers. Stay strong, stay centered, and never forget the loudest power a man can hold is the silence he refuses to break. This is Stoic blessing. Until next time, stand tall, stay focused, and keep rising above the noise.